So as I'm sure many of you are aware, there's more than 200,000 households in our central Indiana region that live in or near poverty. And this is it's critical work. So we have to continue to work together to address those barriers to employment and then, create meaningful opportunities for economic mobility in the communities that we serve. So today we'll be joined by two incredible leaders who are just making a real difference in this area. We'll have, next slide, Kimberly Simmons from the Indianapolis Urban League and Maria Baca Vilchez from LISC Indianapolis. Both, if you're not familiar, both of these organizations are on the front lines, heavily on the front lines, using innovative strategies to just empower communities and create pathways to economic prosperity. So we are hoping that today you leave with, just leave feeling inspired and with new ideas that you can apply in your own work moving forward. So I'm going to go ahead and let us dive on in. Please feel free to continue answering the intro question. I love to hear you guys' responses, but we're going to go ahead and dive on in. So Kimberly and Maria, first want to thank you all for being here today, starting your Friday morning with us. Before we dive into some questions and some conversation, I want to just, set the framework of the conversation. So Kimberly, I'll start with you. Can you just tell us your role, a little bit about your role, your organization, and how, and what lens, I should say, you view and are involved in when it comes to economic mobility?
Absolutely. Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Kimberly Simmons, and I am the Executive Vice President of Programs and Chief Programs Officer with the Indianapolis Urban League. And I am responsible for managing all of our programs and services that we provide to Central Indiana and surrounding counties. The Indianapolis Urban League was actually founded in 1965, and we'll be celebrating our 60-year anniversary next year. And the organization has done a lot to be able to address the struggles, the challenges that many of Central Indiana residents face with securing and retaining employment. We have developed a number of programs to be able to address the immediate needs of our program participants because, of course, many of them are unemployed, many of them are underemployed. And so we as an organization understand the importance of being able to develop programming that is very specific and very intentional with addressing some of those barriers that prevent many of our program participants from being successful with identifying, securing, and retaining employment. And so some of those programs include our New Beginnings program, which was actually launched in January of 2014. And so we have celebrated our 10-year anniversary with our New Beginnings program. And then our Training Works program was launched in 2017 that works very closely with our New Beginnings program to be able to assist individuals with earning an industry recognized training credential. So the ultimate goal is, of course, once they successfully complete our New Beginnings program, then they will transition to our Training Works program, which will allow them the opportunity to meet those enrollment requirements and then ultimately be able to successfully complete a short-term training program and earn an industry recognized training credential. And all of the other programs and services that we provide up under the workforce development umbrella go hand in hand with the New Beginnings program. So that's the entry point into our workforce development program.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And then Maria, I'll pass it to you. Just, your role, your organization, and just the lens that you or the perspective that you have when it comes to economic mobility.
Thank you. Thank you, Deja, and thank you for allowing me the time to share, about this type of work in the community. My name is Maria Baca Vilchez, and I serve as the Assistant Program Officer for the Income and Wealth Building team at LISC. What that means is that my portfolio consists of working with several financial opportunity centers here in Central Indiana. LISC is heavily committed and, community development. And so with that, of course, workforce development and economic development is at the forefront of our programming. And so we have several, strategies and priorities that we focus heavily on those communities that we serve.
Thank you. And I'm happy that you mentioned development. So for those of you who are not familiar, or I want to say Maria, can you just tell us a little bit about LISCs work with community development and how you all help pave the way for better employment opportunities, but particularly for marginalized populations throughout Central Indiana and then obviously beyond.
Absolutely. And so, as I mentioned, our focus is, heavily focused on that economic development piece in the community. And we do so by, of course, providing, programming that serves, those underserved, underrepresented populations. Some opportunities that we have heavily invested on is, education, skills trainings, and support services tailored, to these underinvested communities. And through partnerships with local organizations, we connect individuals to workforce development programming and small business support and small business development programs. And these programs, address barriers to employment, and they foster economic growth. One example that I can give you right now that we're focusing on piloting because of the need that stemmed through, like the pandemic and then, the creation of businesses. We are implementing a HUD Section 4 capacity building grant for entrepreneurs. And through this program, we're serving small business owners by leveraging our business development organizations as well as our financial opportunity center, financial coaching programs to support entrepreneurs become loan ready. That's one of the biggest things that we are facing right now. Is that a lot of the business owners or businesses that opened in the pandemic are closing at high rates because many of these businesses are not able to expand due to personal credit being tied with like the business credit. And so we are, because of that need, we were able to then, address this need by creating and providing, financial support as well as technical assistance for this program. We also, of course, have our own LISC AmeriCorps program. And with this program, we, of course, this program serves as a platform for those individuals interested in learning more about community development. They serve at host organizations, and it allows them to, not only learn about the ins and outs of community development, but they also learn new skills through a very intentional professional development opportunities.
Thank you for sharing. And I feel like a very important key aspect when it comes to workforce development is the long-term sustainability of it. So Kimberly, I know that your work at Indianapolis Urban League focuses or emphasizes creating long-term career pathways for those underserved populations that you guys are serving. So if you could just share with us, what are some of the most, successful strategies that you've implemented to help individuals not just secure jobs, but to build sustainable careers?
Sure. Well, one of the things that we recognize first and foremost is the importance of being able to assist our program participants with addressing their immediate needs. Those immediate needs, of course, are those barriers that are preventing them from being able to support their families. That could include transportation, that could include housing, that could include maybe they're struggling with addiction. Maybe those individuals are struggling with childcare. So what we do as an organization is that we have staff members that actually we touch our program participants multiple times because we recognize that in order for someone to be able to successfully retain employment and to provide for their families, that they may greatly benefit from having the support needed to be able to address some of those barriers. So you cannot build economical wealth when you are struggling with childcare. You cannot build economic wealth when you are dealing with housing issues. And so we have a number of different departments, a number of staff members that have their own personal lived experiences that are able to assist our program participants with addressing all of those barriers, which will hopefully ensure that once they are able to secure employment, earning that livable wage, that they will be able to sustain that employment. So we approach things with a common sense approach. We work very, very closely together with a lot of great collaborative partners because we cannot, as an organization, do this by ourselves. And so the partnerships that we have with other organizations allow us to be able to meet those needs, first identifying some of those barriers, meeting those needs with the ultimate goal of us being able to assist our participants with being able to retain that employment employment. We
Mhm.
also recognize that for some of our participants that they may just need a job at that time because of course the holidays are right around the corner. They have financial obligations that they need to take care of. So helping them to identify just a struggle job, if you will, a job that's just going to allow them to be able to pay those expenses, and then ultimately working with our financial coaches, working with our career coaches, working with other coaches within the IUL to be able to address some of those needs, some of those barriers. So that's something that we have been able to do very well, and we're just happy to be in a position to be able to do that. But we do recognize the importance of that.
Yeah, and I'm happy that you mentioned just partnership and collaboration because there are pretty much all of our audience are professionals that come from human service or nonprofit organizations throughout the Central Indiana region. So I want to talk about an uplift partnership for a little bit with you both. Kimberly, specifically, how like with Indianapolis Urban League engaging with the various employers and different organizations, can you just share what are some of the challenges and then some of the successes that you've had in just fostering these relationships and creating that partnership or that level of rapport in order to create these opportunities and make them available in the community?
Sure, that's a great question. I've been with the organization for 11 years, and we have developed partnerships with well over 185 preferred employers. However, people leave, they leave their positions, they go to other roles. And so that is some of the challenge that we've had is that we may have been working with an employer for so long, but then when that individual leaves, we're now starting to we're trying to reconnect with that organization because that individual left. They may or may not have provided their colleagues with our information, and so once they leave, we're trying to reestablish that connection with that employer.
Yeah.
One of the things that we also try to do is we really understand and we value the importance of I call them our small mom and pop employers. We have
Mhm.
our entrepreneurship center program as well that we launched in 2021. And with that respective program, we're providing local entrepreneurs with the support that they need to launch, sustain, or expand their small business. And for many of them, they're needing great employees. And so we're able to connect not only with those larger employers, but we're also able to connect with those smaller mom and pop employers because they have those opportunities that, quite frankly, once we're providing those training opportunities to our program participants, some employers are not willing to take the risk to train those individuals because now they have earned those certifications. And because
Mm.
we recognize that, we also understand the importance of thinking outside the box and partnering with the smaller mom and pop organizations who have those immediate needs as well. And that allows us the opportunity to connect that small business with our program participants with limited or no experience, and they're able to gain that experience. And so,
Yeah.
so that's been some of the challenges is that again, just reconnecting with those employers once they have staff members that have left and moved on to other opportunities, in addition to continuing to identify maybe some of those smaller employers that have needs as well. So it's a constant, just always making sure that we're connected to everyone, regardless of size, who's offering employment opportunities.
All right. Okay. Thank you for sharing. And then Maria, I know LISC focuses heavily on just creating collaborative partnerships and providing financial support to community organizations. So how would you say do these collaborations help break down the employment barriers faced by individuals in poverty? And then what have you found to be just some of the more effective models of cooperation and collaboration in your experience?
So LISC operates as an intermediary. So that means that we are not dictating our, partners how to implement programming, right?
Hmm.
Because we understand that they, are working in and interfacing with the community members in the community, and they understand better how to better serve those populations. And so with that, we, of course, we partner intentionally with those that are, providing, outcomes and results that are, transformative in the communities. And so something that, Kimberly mentioned is like the same barriers that, any of the communities that we see across the nation is, like those, you know, um, low-level skill training, the childcare, transportation barriers, job placement, so our partners focus heavily on, breaking down those barriers, but also, providing those, placement supports that are gonna, transform people's lives. And through the skills training, it's the other way that we have been able to address a lot of, like those barriers. And one of the most effective models that I mentioned, is of course, the Bridges to Career Opportunities that LISC, houses. And so through the Financial Opportunity Centers, we offer, workforce development and just similar model to, Kimberly, the wraparound services. This is a model that is, similar as, like the Center for Working Families. And so with that, the wraparound services and is a true model that, is being tested and is proven. And of course, like we see more success when individuals, have these services all combined. And so our network currently is comprised of over 120 FOC centers nationwide. And I believe as of now, 40 are currently implementing the Bridges to Career Opportunities, so offering those workforce development opportunities.
Thank you. And I'm happy that you mentioned the word barrier, because I want to take a step back and just, paint or picture and invite people who may not be as, involved in this work a little bit. So I know both of your organizations focus on empowering individuals by, removing some of those barriers to employment. So what do you think are some of the most significant obstacles that people face when trying to enter or re-enter the workforce, sorry. And then, kind of discuss a little bit how you're addressing them through your programs. But I would love for us to kind of like level set and just let it be known, like, what are some of the more significant barriers and obstacles that you've seen when people are entering or even re-entering for whatever reason, the workforce. So Marie, I'll start with you and then I'll transition to you, Kimberly.
Sure. I believe, like one of the most significant barriers that people face is the mindset. And so we have to, change mindsets. And that takes a lot of work, but a lot of it is also, trauma. And so, it's not just the skill development, but how do we move people from, like their mindset? And with that is a lot of work. So through the Healthy Bridges to Careers in Tech work that we're doing here locally, where we have been able to, partner individuals with, like behavioral and mental health services. And those are intentional services that are specifically for, like one-on-one, sessions or, group sessions. And so that is integrated in every single one of the programs that we offer through the Bridges to Career Opportunities. And so, the other barriers that we see often is childcare, transportation. Kimberly, like she mentioned that a lot of it is just, like stabilizing the individual. Many times they come, like with fire, like a fireball. And so a lot of the work again is, like just stabilizing the individual before offering, like those opportunities. One of the main, I guess, barriers that is not often mentioned in a lot of these opportunities is the language barrier. And so many of our, partners offer tailored programming for individuals that have, that English is not their primary language. And so again, it's just, like finding partners and being intentional and partnering with organizations that are, like targeting those, underserved and underrepresented populations. And so the other barrier that we see often is, like, of course, justice involved individuals. Our programs, like we don't limit individuals. We offer, access to programming to anyone. And so the partnerships that we also, develop through employers, like Kimberly mentioned, is, ensuring that these employers are also, being inclusive with their hiring practices.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And then Kimberly, I'll allow some space for you to, provide your perspective as well.
I'm sorry, I have one more.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Please, the more the merrier.
Digital inclusivity, because many individuals, especially, like immigrants and refugees, it's really hard for them to, get access to programs because a lot of times, like for the most part, everything is, like through computer or online, programming. And so through, like digital inclusive, programming, we have been able to also tackle, a lot of those barriers that limit, access to programming.
Mm.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. And Kimberly, if you would like to, I don't know, allow some space for you to respond as well.
Yes, no, Maria, she nailed it.
Yeah.
The only thing that I could think of just to add to that is the addiction piece. I don't think Maria mentioned the addictions piece. Did you mention the addictions piece? Okay. Well, what we found is that unfortunately, many of our program participants have struggled with addiction in some capacity.
Mhm.
And so for us as an organization, we have a program called our Special Population Support Program, which is our SPSP program. And that program allows us to be able to assist individuals who have been diagnosed with HIV and AIDS and struggling with addiction. And so
Mhm.
we recognize that for those individuals, in addition to other individuals that may struggle with addiction or they're actually in recovery right now, that that happens to be a huge barrier for them to be able to provide or meet their basic needs by securing employment and more importantly, being able to retain employment. And the one thing that I want to share, and I know that Maria is going to definitely be in agreement with this, is that once you assist someone with being able to secure employment, now the challenge is helping them to retain employment. They have to
Mhm.
be able to keep that job. And so we recognize the importance that with the partners that we develop collaborations with those employers, that we're very intentional when we are making those referrals to those employers to refer those individuals that we have determined to be not only suitable, but eligible for those employment opportunities as well. And so what we're never going to do as an organization is set someone up for failure. So if we know that you are struggling with addiction, we really do need to have a conversation that will allow us to be able to assist that individual with getting into recovery, whatever those steps may look like. And then we have had to take it a step further by having those conversations with those employers and providing those employers the retention assistance and services that they may very well need in order to be able to retain the employees that we have actually referred to them. And so with our career coaches, we continue to maintain that contact with those employers, those preferred employers, in an effort to make sure that they have the support that they need. So if we have someone that we have referred to them and that individual has been working, doing a great job, but then life happens, something may happen where that individual is no longer attending work on time or their attendance is sporadic. So those
Mhm.
employers will reach out to us and say, hey, listen, there's an issue with Jane Doe or there's an issue with John Doe. And then that will allow the team to be able to connect with that program participant and say, hey, let's have a conversation, because the ultimate goal is we want to make sure that they are retaining employment, because first and foremost, we care about the needs of our program participants for them to be able to support their families. But we recognize that the employers may very well need the additional support as well to be able to retain that employee as well.
Absolutely. And I couldn't imagine having to deal with it, but it's such a struggle, I would imagine, to have to worry about going to work on a consistent basis when your housing is unstable or you don't have reliable transportation and whatnot. So absolutely. Thank you both for sharing. I want to go back to something that Maria highlighted in inclusivity, digital equity, language barriers, just various ways that inclusivity factors into workforce. So as we know, economic mobility is just tied to creating these inclusive and accessible pathways to employment. So Maria, I'll begin. Maria, I'll begin with you. How do your respective organizations, LISC, both LISC and the Indianapolis Urban League, ensure that individuals from diverse backgrounds, including those with criminal records or disabilities or limited education, have a fair chance at securing employment?
So yeah, something that Kimberly, continuously, brings up is, that intentionality of partner with, inclusive employers that practice, have those practices in place, the structure in place. Because, like in my experience working, with employers, they can tell you, like we want this, and that, but it all depends who you're meeting with, because once you meet with the, line supervisor, then things change. The profile of a candidate that, was presented to you by an HR director or a CEO changes drastically from, what the line supervisor is going to need. And so having, like those relationships, ensuring that, like, of course, that the employer has, inclusive hiring practices. I think that's what, like sets those partnerships apart. And also, like something that Kimberly also addresses, like that relationship fostering, and then, deepening those relationships with those employers, because they also have high turnover. And so we have to be mindful that a lot of times, like the contact that you had is no longer going to be there because people move. And so I guess the main word here with, the work that we do with our employer partners is, intentionality. And of course, like fair employment opportunities that are tailored to support, like not just the, newly acquired skills, because a lot of the people that go through Bridges to Career Opportunities trainings, many of them are, like seasoned, people that have, like those skills. They just need that certification to formalize, like the training or the skills. And but a lot of times, like these individuals are new in entry-level positions. And so we want to make sure that, again, we position them and make them as more competitive as they are, but also, like talking to the employers to make them understand that, like they're not by no means no experts, but, like they do need that opportunity to develop and hone in the skills that they learn. And so, yeah, that is, like, I guess one of the ways to ensure that, like those fair, hiring practices are in place. And of course, like with our program, like we help our individuals, our participants overcome, barriers to achieve, sustainable employment, like with our FOC and, our Financial Opportunity Center and business development partners, we deliver tailored programming to address, like, again, the language barriers. And a lot of times, like the documenting, undocumented community also, like that is something that not a lot of people, speak about, because, like many of the community centers don't have the structure in place to support, like those populations. And so we help broker, relationships with, like communities or with other organizations across the nation that are, like providing those services, and how to support, like our partners to then develop programming that is going to be inclusive in that way too.
Absolutely. And then Kimberly would just love to hear how IUL just, focuses on breaking down those barriers and, allowing space and accessibility for people who do have maybe addiction background, like you mentioned, or a criminal history or whatever it may be.
Sure. If I could also, if I could share, is that we are very, very intentional with our programming. Every program that we have developed using a common sense approach, making sure that we're meeting the needs of the community. So we take the feedback from not only our staff members, but the community as a whole. And so when we have programs that are being provided, one of the things that I think we do a great job of is really encouraging our program participants to answer surveys, provide us with some information that we need, because we think that we know what the community needs, but sometimes it's definitely best to include the community in on what you think they may very well need. And they provide us with some great feedback. And so one of the things that we have learned is that we have seen a huge increase in our Latino enrollment within the agency. And we are very, very proud of that. We have been very intentional with making sure that our staff is diverse. We have individuals from all walks of life, from all nationalities, all backgrounds that are working for us, because again, we understand the importance of having individuals that can connect with that particular population, those individuals with those lived experiences. We launched our Spanish New Beginnings program That's been launched now for 2 years, and that program has grown significantly. So now we're starting to see an increase in Haitian enrollment as well. So because we know that we've got, different populations that are coming to the organization, we have to be very, very intentional on the programs, slightly adjust the programming to make sure that we're meeting the needs of everybody who comes in. We have even taken it a step further by actually hiring someone to come in and translate in French and Creole. So yes,
Mm,
we have Spanish speaking staff on board, but in addition to that, because we had the increase in our Haitian enrollment, we've been very intentional, as I shared, with hiring someone or bringing someone in rather that speaks French as well as Creole. We have a partnership with MSD Warren Township. They are actually in-house at the IUL. They provide the TABE testing, the classroom hours, post-testing. For those that are Spanish speaking, we actually have to have them go to MSD Warren Township's office, their key building, to receive those services. But again, making sure that they're staying connected because they have limited capacities as well. We've actually took it a step further by identifying those employers who have a need for individuals who speak Spanish, French, as well as Creole. So just
mm,
making sure that we are having those opportunities available for individuals from different populations, because we do know that we have the increase in those that we are serving. So again, being very, very intentional. And as far as the those with convictions, we we understand the importance of partnering with employers who understand that people need to be able to make a living once they are released from incarceration or once they have a conviction that's on their record. We have started recently hosting weekly expungement, I'm sorry, monthly expungement workshops for individuals who have convictions that need to be expunged, or even those who have housing evictions that need to be expunged,
mm,
because that's something else that is preventing individuals who may very well be working and have great jobs. But if once you have an eviction on your background, that is going to make it very, very challenging for you to be able to secure stable housing. Never
mm,
mind the fact that the housing rates, the rental rates have increased significantly. So if you have an eviction, now instead of someone paying $500 for an application or $1,000 for their deposit, that number has now been doubled just because that individual has an eviction. Never mind the fact that that individual's eviction was because of the pandemic, because they lost their employment. So there's a number of things that we as an organization and a lot of other organizations as well are really trying to sit down and figure out the best way to be able to assist individuals with being able to secure that stable housing. The employment piece, of course, just being very intentional with the partnerships that we develop, and only really partnering with those employers that really understand the importance of giving someone a second chance. But because we recognize that some employers, unfortunately, if you're a very, very large employer, you may be very limited as to what you can do for someone who has a conviction. So then that's when we encourage our program participants to think about starting their own jobs, their own businesses. And so we have found a lot of success with that and encouraging our program participants to think outside of the box. And then one last thing I want to share is that we have also really tried to be very intentional with encouraging our program participants to look at working with nonprofit organizations.
mm,
Sometimes a traditional for-profit company, they have so many parameters set in place, no judgment. However, for someone who's trying to support their families, they're trying to build economic wealth, it may be in their best interest to think outside the box and work for those nonprofit organizations that might be a little bit more forgiving, because sometimes those are the individuals who do the best work, the individuals who have lived experiences.
mm.
So
Yep,
really just trying to help our participants to see that there are so many opportunities that are available, just making sure that they identify the best opportunity for them and ultimately their families.
absolutely, absolutely. There's no higher level of relatability than actually living and going through the experience. So thank you for sharing. Before we open the call up for Q&A, I want to touch on two topics, and one of those being impact. So Kimberly, I would just love to hear just some of the metrics that you use at Indianapolis Urban League to measure the success of your employment and economic mobility initiatives.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, the first thing for us is making sure that individuals have a crystal clear understanding of the entire process. So when someone understands, employer expectations, understands the work readiness aspect of it, that helps us out tremendously because often we found that individuals simply do not understand what that means. So
Mm,
someone being exposed to understanding the importance of a resume, the importance of the employability skills, the importance of securing training credentials, the importance of being able to not only secure but retain and sustain employment as well. For us, those individuals securing employment, earning a livable wage. Those individuals who have been able to retain employment, those individuals who have seen an increase in their net worth, those individuals who have been able to access their credit report. Has your credit score been able to increase as a direct result of working with your financial coach because you've reviewed you reviewed your credit report, and now you're able to work closely with those organizations or what have you to be able to address the outstanding debt that you have in an effort to be able to get it off of your credit report and to see your credit score increase. So it's just a number of things that we're able to use that allow us to be able to determine effectiveness of the program. But ultimately, it's retaining employment. It's having an increase in their net worth, an increase in their credit scores. So those all play a part in what we're doing to determine effectiveness with our programs.
absolutely. And Maria, any metrics or anything that you want to add to that maybe LISC uses?
So we, similarly to what Kimberly mentioned, job placement, wage growth, skill certification, and retention. And so, for example, like with the bridges to career opportunities is similar to, like the programming that Indianapolis Urban League offers. Like how many people, gain industry specific certifications and secure, higher paying jobs. And I think that, like something that we also this is not something that is easy to track, is that it is just the impact in people's lives, right? And so just having the, like, I guess the pulse on, like on the individuals and, like the ones that stay engaged, like just seeing how their lives get transformed. That is not, like anywhere. I don't think there is any system that can track, like the impact, like that these programs, have in people's lives.
Absolutely, definitely. And then the last thing I would love to hear from you both before we open up for some questions from the audience are just any advice. Like I mentioned before, this call is pretty much the entire audience are community leaders and nonprofit professionals. So, what advice would you give to other nonprofit leaders, community stakeholders, or employers who want to get involved in addressing the systemic barriers to employment and economic mobility, specifically for low-income populations in our region? Marie, I'll begin with you, and then Kimberly, you can round us out.
Yeah, my advice is just building, like those strong, collaborative partnerships that align those resources, like with the expertise, focus on addressing, like those immediate barriers that were mentioned, like I said, childcare, transportation, mental health, behavioral health, access to, like quality of trainings, access to, like those meaningful job opportunities, long-term, those solutions, not just, like for the immediate, but long-term. And, of course, like also thinking about projecting to the future because people don't want to stay, like doing the same thing over and over,
Mhm.
like how do we develop, like pathways, like that are gonna, increase individuals, like opportunity for development, well-paying jobs. And, of course, if you're engaging with, like these communities, with these populations, just being intentional, like how you're gonna serve, like these communities to ensure that the programs that you're offering are tailored, to their specific needs.
Mm, absolutely. And then Kimberly, any advice that you would give any employers looking to collaborate, community stakeholders, any nonprofit professionals who want to get involved?
Yes, again, Maria nailed it. The only thing that I could say, and I really do we as an organization really appreciate partnerships, as Maria shared, being very, very intentional. It's going to take the entire workforce development ecosystem to be able to ensure that Central Indiana and surrounding counties have the support needed in order for everyone to be able to secure and retain employment earning a livable wage. Um, Employers who recognize the importance of working with those community-based organizations that have access to the funding to be able to provide the retention services or the supportive services needed to be able to retain employment. We understand that employers are limited as to what they can do. So that's why I would encourage them to identify a community-based organization whose mission aligns with yours, an organization that maybe you've worked with before and maybe you have not, but just being very, very intentional. There are some phenomenal community-based organizations out there that want to make sure that the needs of the community are being met so that ultimately families are able to thrive, so that the support is given so children can go to secondary education. I mean, it takes a village. And I think that with the workforce development ecosystem, everyone being very intentional with their collaborative partnerships and just taking the principle before personalities. Let's just work together and just make sure that we're doing what needs to be done to ensure that the needs of the community is being met so that they can support their families.
Absolutely, which is ultimately the North Star. Absolutely. So thank you both for sharing. I want to allow just some space for Q&A from the audience. If you have any questions about just the discussion or about the organization's LISC, Indianapolis Urban League, ways to get involved, feel free to come off mute if you're comfortable, drop your questions in the chat box. We have a really cool Q&A function on Zoom. So just want to allow space to bring the audience into the conversation a bit. And I personally do have a question, but I'll pause. I do want to allow the space if anyone does want to ask their question, but I do have a good question I do want to ask.
I do have a quick question.
Absolutely, go ahead.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much, Kimberly and Maria, for the insights that you shared. My name is Raymond Ashiel. I own a local health equity firm here in the city, and our mission is to help close the racial health gap here in Indianapolis and beyond. And I know that there's definitely correlations between the health gap that we see in communities that are underserved and their ability to be able to get jobs, retain jobs. And then just, for business owners as well, we experience a large amount of stress in our daily lives that can also have an impact on our health and our performance. So I wanted to see in the economic development resources that you all provide in the programming, do you all address any of those health related concerns with the people that you serve, or is that something that you all are looking to continue to do more of as you go into 2025?
So I can go ahead and talk about the work that LISC does in this space through our health equity programming. We target and we tie it to up to three fundamentals resources that every neighborhood needs to keep residents well: easy access to primary health care, affordable, nutritious food, and safe places to exercise. And so we don't do the work directly. We trust that the work that our partners, the partners that we fund, are delivering these services, and we know that they are because like we have seen a lot of progress in this area. Going to workforce development, like the healthy bridges to careers in tech, that's just integrating like that behavioral mental health support within the programming that we that our partners offer through those financial opportunity center partnerships that we have. And so there's a lot of this work happening, and work that LISC is being very intentional in funding, because we understand that there is so much stigma, there is so much need, and so with that we have, and currently like we continue to develop those programs based on research by our national office.
Awesome, thank you.
If I could share, the Indianapolis Urban League's mission is to empower African Americans and disadvantaged individuals to achieve social and economic equality and improve quality of living through programs, which include services and advocacy and education, workforce development, entrepreneurship, health, and housing. We employ a 5-point strategy tailored to allow us to meet the needs of the community. And one of those strategies is our health and quality of life empowerment, which allows us to work to build healthy and safe communities and to eliminate health disparities through prevention, healthy eating, fitness, as well as access to affordable health care. I also want to share that we as an organization in April of 2020, we received a number of phone calls from individuals that were struggling with being able to put food on the table. And so our president and CEO, Tony Mason, rallied everybody together and said, okay, everyone, we're going to do a food distribution. And we did that food distribution weekly for 2 years. Now we're doing it, monthly, and we have had over 140 food distributions that we as an organization, along with staff and volunteers and contractors, have been able to provide healthy food, meals, produce to the community. In addition to that, we also recently launched our food pantry. We are doing weekly workout sessions that are free to the community. We are in the process of launching our community health worker program, as well as our maternal and child program as well. So we definitely understand as an organization the importance of making sure that we are meeting the health and quality of life needs of Central Indiana. And we're always, always looking for great partners because we cannot do this work alone.
Understood. Thank you both.
Beautiful. And it looks like we had a question in the chat box. Ruba from Indy Reads mentioned she appreciates Maria and Kimberly both speaking to ELL populations. I'd love to hear from both what they have seen from literacy and numeracy barriers as well. At Indy Reads, we see a rise in demand for language and literacy development for both native and non-native English speakers. Curious if you see that as well.
Yes, we do see that with the like the Bridges to Career Opportunities programming. That is definitely an opportunity for us to like I guess invest more in because we understand that that's a big need. And yes, definitely there is huge waiting lists across the board. I don't from all adult basic education providers to like those smaller EL classes offered at churches and such. And so with that in mind, we're actually partnering with Indy Reads to provide contextualized training for those that are English is not their primary language, and also like to address, of course, like that literacy for the English speakers. And so it's great that we have partners like Indy Reads that are stepping up and into bridging that gap.
Absolutely. And Kimberly, would you like to share as well?
Sure. Just briefly, yes, we've definitely seen an increase. Our partnership with MSD Warren Township allows us to be able to refer our ultimately our program participants that are seeking enrollment into our Training Works program to MSD Warren Township. But we also have partnerships with Wayne Township and IPS as well. Basic skills remediation is provided on site at the Indianapolis Urban League, and it is open to the community. But we definitely recognize that we do have individuals with very limited or no English speaking skills whatsoever. So the partnership that we have with MSD Warren Township allows us to be able to at least make those referrals, and they are an in-house partner. And then, of course, as I shared, we do connect with the other school districts as well and make referrals there as well.
Thank you. And thank you, Ruba, for your question. Stephanie Berry asked, which is a really good question, Stephanie, what is considered a livable wage in Central Indiana?
The Indianapolis Urban League is a fair wage employer. Yes, we're a good wage employer. I'm sorry, we are a good wage employer. And so at one point in time, that was $18 an hour, but now there is discussion that it's been increased to $20 to $22 an hour, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
Okay.
That's what Employee Indy has it in their Good Wages initiative, is that it used to be $18, but now they're raising it to $22.
Yes.
It's progress. Yeah, thank you for sharing the link to the Good Wages Initiative as well. One question I had, if I am just looking to get involved in some volunteer opportunities or whatnot, where do I start? Do I go on a website and see if you have anything posted, or are there any volunteer opportunities that either of your organizations are offering that would just be a good starting point for me or anyone on this call to learn more or get hands-on when it comes to getting involved in this work?
I can share that, at LISC, we don't necessarily have volunteer opportunities. We do have, our, opportunities to become a board member. And so, if that is of interest, definitely, reach out. We're always seeking for individuals that with, like certain expertise that, allow us to continue pushing, initiatives forward. But I know that, like our partners, our financial opportunity center partners, at their various, like websites, they do have a ton of, volunteer opportunities, particularly one of the ones that I do know is, like conversational circles for the ELL, community and the ELL programming that they offer. So our partners are Mary Rig Neighborhood Center, Anna Martin Christian Center, Flannery House of Indianapolis, La Plaza. And we also have Southeast Community Services. And we have a partnership with, like also with Mosaic Center for Life and Learning. And I'm missing one, the John Bonner Community Center. So at any of their websites, you can always, like feel free to look and they always have a ton of, volunteer opportunities there.
Okay, thank you. And then Kimberly, any that you're aware of that would be helpful as well.
Sure. Oh, yes. We need and appreciate volunteers. Every year we host our annual back to school block party and backpack distribution. And July of 2024 was our largest turnout ever. We had probably about 5,000 individuals in attendance.
Wow.
And so we definitely have a need for volunteers because we need someone to help us stuff backpacks. And that's a very busy day for us. In addition to that, we have our our entrepreneur and small business fair in August, where we need volunteers to be able to assist with that. We just had our Kwanzaa holiday assistance program where volunteers were needed to help us shop for many of our families, wrap gifts, and then IUL programming. I actually manage 5 of the programs that the organization has. And so, of course, because we have a number of program participants that come in seeking our services, sometimes we need someone to come in and assist us with creating resumes, or maybe someone who has a lived experience, or maybe they have a certification that they earned, or they have a small business that they want to speak with individuals about. So just taking advantage of a lot of the skills and experiences of those in the community who are willing to give back. If anyone is interested in serving as a volunteer, I would really encourage them to go to our website, which is www.indpls.org. And there is a link for you to be able to apply and submit an application. It's a really quick questionnaire about our volunteer opportunities, and we would love to have you.
Perfect. Great. And with the newsletter at United Way of Central Indiana, we always try to include a lot of volunteer opportunities for people to get hands-on. So anything that anyone would like to share, provide, or plug for volunteer opportunities, please feel free to send them my way. Any way that we can distribute these opportunities and get more eyes on them and therefore more hands in the room, I would love to do my part. So looks like we have a couple more questions. Sam, just a quick question, was wondering if there's a distinction between a fair, a livable, or a good wage.
A fair, a livable, and a good wage.
Yeah,
Well,
he mentioned you had transitioned from livable to fair to good, and just wanted to make sure there wasn't a distinction or if it was all kind of interchangeable.
it's all interchangeable. A good, say that again, Deja, just say that one more time.
Yep. No, he mentioned, I noticed that Kimberly transitioned from livable to fair to good wages. So is there a distinction between these, or are they all just interchangeable?
I think it's all
I
interchangeable.
think so too. Yeah.
Depending
Okay.
on who you
Perfect.
ask.
Yeah, fair. Okay, I just wanted to provide that clarity. And then we had a question from Lydia in the Q&A function on Zoom. Are there policy changes that are implemented, I think, are implementations that would help further your work, or is there current policy that hinders it? How can we best advocate, and what do we advocate for in regards to increasing economic mobility for our marginalized groups?
Go ahead, Maria, go ahead.
Sure, that is an area that LISC, is heavily focused on at a national and local level. Definitely, meeting with our, representatives, to see, what they're, proposing, and also, what organizations we can, like partner with to, push some initiatives, forward. And so, a lot of the work, the advocacy work is, is definitely happening. And there is certainly a lot of challenges that will be coming, with the new administration, but that is the work that we're here to do. We're here to serve, we're here to advocate, we're here to continue push, for change. And so yes, there's definitely challenges, but we also have, a lot of really great individuals, like at the, policy level advocating for many of these, initiatives that LISC has in various communities across the nation. I guess the best way, to connect or to, advocate is just get familiar with, like what's happening locally, and support, I guess, like those initiatives that you feel that are very dear and, near to your heart.
I'm not really sure what's going on with this one here. Okay, thank you, Maria. And
Just
then
to
Kimberly,
add to what, sure, just to add to what Maria was saying, we have an advocacy department within the Indianapolis Urban League that is actually managed by Mark Russell, who has a significant number of years with advocacy experience. But the main thing for us would be the ban the box. For me, would be the one that really, really comes to mind. I know that for many of our program participants who have convictions, them being asked about the question of them having convictions on their applications, especially if their convictions are 10, 15, 20 years old, that is a barrier for them being able to secure employment, because many of them have served their time. They are attempting to not only be able to support themselves, but more importantly, be able to support their families. And so that ban the box is huge. I do know that some employers have actually removed that question about convictions from their applications, but there are some employers who still keep that very same question on their applications, which is making it extremely difficult for individuals with returning citizens, if you will, to be able to secure employment, especially employment earning a livable wage. So for us under the workforce development umbrella, definitely the ban the box.
Absolutely. And thank you both for sharing. I want to honor, we are 1 minute over time. But before we allow, if anyone would like to stay on and ask any other questions, please feel free to do so. But I do want to just take some time to thank our excellent panelists today. Kimberly, Maria, amazing. Just, I have no other words. Amazing. Your organizations and you both individually are doing really amazing work. And I just want to thank you on behalf of everyone on the call for sharing and providing those insights with us today, bright and early on a Friday morning during this busy season. So thank you both, and thank you all for joining. Our sector calls will continue into the new year. So the first one for 2025 will be January 24th. And that will cover hybrid horizons, mastering the future of work. So that'll cover just hybrid environments. This new